Hi, second graders. I put up a video yesterday introducing our next unit in social studies, which is all about the study of history. But guess what? You couldn't hear much of what I was saying, so here I go again. I hope this one works. All right, so yes, the next unit we're going to be working on is on history. And all that history is, and you may have heard this word before, history is the study of how people and places change over time. So there's three words that are there, very important: people, places, and change. Okay? So change, as you know, means that something was one way at one point in time, and then something happens and it gets transformed. It changes. It no longer is the same. It doesn't look the same. It may not even act the same if we're talking about a person. Okay? So that is what we are going to be learning about. Now, I want to show you a timeline, a very simple timeline, okay? So actually, this one is wrong. Let me show you why it's wrong. So if we can imagine this is time. Time really goes on forever. It is always going. It is like the number line, okay? It is always going. There is no beginning and there is no end. So let me just correct that here for a minute, okay? I'm drawing some little arrows to show that time goes on forever in both directions, okay? So if this is time and we are here today in the present, what came before the present, or what came before today, was the past. And the past could be yesterday, or it could be a really long time ago. For you, since you're only 7 or 8 years old, a long time ago, you might think, would have been 2 years ago, 7 years ago when you were born. But for me, I've been alive much longer. To me, 7 years ago is not that much. To me, a long time ago is maybe when I was little, which was like 45 years ago, 47 years ago. I mean, I'm 50, so imagine I was born a really long time ago. But we can go back even further and we can think of a time before Miss Massard was born, before my mother was born, before my grandparents were born, and that is a really long time ago because my grandma was born more than 100 years ago. She's no longer alive, okay? And we can even go further back in time, okay? So here we are today, and we can keep going back in time long, 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 long ago. And we can even think back on a time where before people were alive on Earth, and there were just dinosaurs, okay? And we know dinosaurs no longer exist, so that was a change too. So that was a long time ago, and we can talk about the past in many different times. Then what is the future? The future is what is coming next. The future hasn't yet arrived. The future is coming. We don't know what it is. But by studying the past, by studying the things that happened long ago, we can understand what happens today, what is happening today. We can understand the present, and we can maybe figure out a little bit of what our future is going to look like. So that's why, my friends, people study history and people examine the past because it teaches us about ourselves. And how can we learn about the past? Well, we can do a number of things, and you will be doing some of them. You can talk to family members. So you can talk to your mom and to your grandparents and to the adults in your life, and you can ask them questions about the time before you were born. Or maybe you just want to know what it was like the day you were born. That would still be learning about the past, wouldn't it? Okay. So we can talk to people that have been alive longer than us. We can also study objects from the past. I love objects from the past. They are called antiques if they're really, really old. And I love everything that's really old. I collect some things that are really, really old. And maybe I'll show you pictures later about that, about some of the pictures from those things that I like to collect. I have some really old irons, what women use to press clothes and make them look nice. I have old, very, very old antique keys that don't look anything like the keys we have today and we use today. I have really old, what's it called? I have really old um, china and really old cups and saucers. And I'll show you some of that. Now, we can also study the past by looking at photographs that were taken a long time ago. And we can go even further back in time to before photographs existed and cameras existed. And we can look at the art that people created a long time ago. We can also look at the maps. Do you remember that I shared with you some maps a few weeks ago about Chicago? Do you remember that it gave us a really good idea of what Chicago used to look like before it had very many buildings? It was just a couple of houses, right? And we could see the river that Chicago started at, and we could see that there were a few animals where Chicago ended up growing. So we can tell a lot about a place and how it has changed by looking at these things, at these artifacts. We can look at the photographs, we can look at maps, and we can look at objects. Okay. And then another thing that we can do to learn about the past is that we can read about the people, the places, and the events that happened long ago. Okay, we can just read about them. We can watch movies about them, but we are readers, aren't we? So that is one of the most important tools we have to learn about the past. I want to tell you that you will be working on several projects in this unit, and it'll be really fun. You will learn about the past in your life. You're going to learn about the past as it looked like to your family members, maybe your mom or your dad. Maybe you're lucky enough to get to hear some stories from your grandparents. And we will be learning about some famous people in the past. Do you remember when we read about Helen Keller? Do you remember how interesting it was to learn about the world that she grew up in and her experiences and why we read about her today? Why was she so famous? Well, we will be doing some more of that too. I promise you will enjoy this unit so much. Thank you for tuning in. Bye-bye.